This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome in to another edition of the Bartholomew Town Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Bartholomew. Today, a conversation with NBC10 WJAR meteorologist Kelly Bates. All right, so obviously COVID numbers are out of control here in Rhode Island. There's no doubt about it, really across the nation, but hyper locally in the Ocean State right now, it looks like we are at minimum heading into a really brutal period. We're already in it technically, and I figured one thing that we could do right now is kind of go back to something that this podcast was built on, something that I know a lot of you enjoyed, and based on the numbers, kind of looking back through old episodes, something that you continue to enjoy, especially those of you who are finding the podcast recently, and that is talking to members of the Rhode Island media. So Kelly Bates, the weekend sunrise meteorologist on WJAR NBC10, someone who has made her way into many a household here in southern New England, joins us today here on the pod. And it's a fun conversation. We get into her history in broadcasting, kind of how she discovered meteorology and some of the major weather events that she's covered. We talk about climate change and how to convey that message via her platform on the television news, and much more. It's a fun conversation with a really fun member of the Rhode Island Media Corps, and hopefully you enjoy it. Now, obviously, as I alluded to seconds ago, COVID-19 spiking here in the Ocean State, and of course, we're going to be right on top of that, not only here on the pod, but also over on the Facebook group and the other social media platforms. btown.stream will take you directly to the B-Town Facebook group. I'm at Bill Bartholomew on Twitter and Instagram. And every Wednesday, as we have for, months and months and months, we'll have Governor Raimondo's weekly COVID-19 address. This Wednesday, it does feel like it's going to be a particularly important one to tune in for. That's 1 p.m. Again, btown.stream. I'm in the room asking questions. And look, it's not looking good right now, the numbers. It's not looking good, or feeling good, I should say, in terms of the vibe. And just being on the radio last week, I was on WPRO and for Tara Granahan for most of last week, and just hearing from callers, getting emails from kind of that broadcast audience, if you will. It seems like no matter where you sit politically, no matter where you sit societally, there's an acknowledgement that this thing is creeping back in a way that is more vicious than perhaps we even experienced in the spring. So the Southern New England community, the Rhode Island community, we're going to pull together and we're going to find ways to get through this. But look, it's probably not much of an overstatement to say it's going to be a long winter, and the only way we're going to get through it is to obviously trust the science, trust those who are driving the methodology, if you will, from a scientific and epidemiological stance to get this thing out of our lives, but also to trust each other, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the leadership can only do so much, and really, more than any leadership, it comes down to all of us collectively, that Unitarian approach to this problem. That's how we're going to solve it, and I'll be here with you. We'll be here together. You can email me anytime, bill@ripodcast.com, if you have any questions that I might be able to answer or pose to, whether it's the governor or the health department. Let's do this together. Let's get out of this freaking mess as a unit of some sort. And I appreciate all of you who have trusted me and trusted this program with conveying as much important information as possible. But for today, let's enjoy one of the characters in our state, meteorologist Kelly Bates. And hey, we even talk about the earthquake that just happened. So this is a fun episode, and I'm glad to be able to spend some time with you as always. Now, Bartholomew Town is a listener-supported program. There's a few ways that you can help sustain this operation. One, you can share this episode on social media. Two, you can leave a rating and review wherever you're listening right now. Or three, if you want to go a step further, for as little as $3 per month, you can help support the independent journalism, opinion, analysis, and entertainment that B-Town has become known for. Simply head to patreon.com/BartholomewTown. For $10 per month, you can become a B-Town insider and receive exclusive content. You can either hit the support button where you're listening right now, or head to patreon.com/BartholomewTown. All right, a lot going on in my world as well. We just launched the new television program, Rhode Island PBS Weekly, last Wednesday. That'll air every Wednesday at 7 o'clock on Rhode Island PBS, and we'll post the episodes on demand shortly after they air. I've got some really cool stuff coming up on that program, everything from features with local artists to covering some of the major news stories of 2020. So that's Rhode Island PBS Weekly. I'll be back on WPRO next week as well. And new podcast stuff, really just finished building out the new studio. We're going to be adding some video elements. I've got a new podcast series that'll premiere in January 2021. So a lot going on. And as always, every Tuesday and Friday, as we have for the past 254 episodes, Rhode Island's podcast of record, B-Town, coming your way. Okay, let's get right to it. Kelly Bates of NBC10 here on the Bartholomew Town podcast. All right, so here we are with the one and only Kelly Bates of NBC10. Wow, this is fun. You know, we've had such a heavy year, and when the podcast started, this podcast, one of my favorite things to do was to interview local media personalities, and you know, we've had a lot of the 10 cast on here, the RJ episode, which went kind of nuclear, one kind of one of our biggest episodes ever. And
it was so fun to listen to, though.
Oh, good.
I enjoyed that one.
He's your coworker. I mean, over there on Storm Team 10. Look out. What am I talking about here?
He's fascinating. He has so much to him that you don't even know, you know? Yeah. And a lot of people that you see on local media are like that. They've got a background that would, I don't know, is very impressive, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Absolutely. You wouldn't, you get surprised that people have, not that you would think, oh, if someone does weather forecasting, that's all they do, but, you know, it's a diversity of human beings that make up the media core, to say the least.
Right. Yes. Well said.
Well, you became a fixture of this market. Gosh, it seems like a decade ago, because I was already gone. I think I was already in New York by the time you made your first appearance on NBC10, which I left for New York in 2006. But then I would come back on the weekends or come back for the holidays and be like, this is pleasant. Hello. And there you were. So let's kind of walk right through it. Where were you born? Where did you get your start in broadcasting? And when did you end up at 10?
Well, at the dawn of time, when there were dinosaurs, I was born. Let's see. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, 1972. I go for accuracy, so yes, I'm 48. Cool fact, I was one of the test babies on the fetal heart monitor. So that's where they developed it, and my mother had trouble, so it's kind of neat. That's my claim to fame, I guess. After that, we moved to Indiana, where my brothers were born. My brothers are twins. And then we went back to Connecticut, and then to Maryland till I was 8, and then to North Attleboro. But my parents are both from West Warwick, so this has always been home for us. Mm-hmm. I went to Bishop Feion High School, graduated there in 1990. Then I went to Lyndon State College in Lyndonville, Vermont. It's up on the Canadian border. It's where Tony Petrarca, TJ Del Santo, Anthony Macari on our own weather team went there. Sure. Jim Cantori went there. So it's a weather school, if you will. From there, I got my first job at Channel 12, believe it or not. I was behind the scenes working on the assignment desk, and I was really bad at it. I missed every story. It was kind of shameful. And they fired me, rightfully so, after like 5 months. But they were nice enough, and Tony was nice enough to let me put together a weather tape, because that's what I went to school for. I sent out one tape to WMUR in Manchester, New Hampshire, and thank goodness they hired me. So I started in New Hampshire. I worked there for 4 years. And that's where I met my husband. And then we moved to Atlanta for a year because I was given an opportunity to work for a weather startup called Weather Plus, where we would essentially do Weather Channel duties, but for Europe. And I was assigned to the pod responsible for the Netherlands. So I worked in the Netherlands pod of Weather Plus for about a year. And the only Dutch I can remember, I can't say on the podcast.
Gotcha.
Things that actually stick in your brain. I did a segment called Leer het Weer, which means learn your weather. So I did educational pieces of how weather systems move and what they mean, the wind scale that they use over there, what it means. And then I would send it to their version of, our AAA auto. Theirs is ANWB, ANWB. So I would send it to them for translation, their motor company. And then I would, put the words on the graphics and stuff like that. The station was called ANWB Weer en Verkeer, ANWB Weather and Traffic. So that's where they came in. And we did that for a year. And then my husband and I found out we were expecting. So we moved home because we weren't going to do it in Atlanta on our own. And we've been in Coventry since then, since 2001. No, 2000. I started on Channel 6 in 2000. October of 2000, I started on Channel 6. And I was there for 4 years before I went over to 10 in 2004.
Okay, so yeah, it was 2004.
My
So I
26th
was.
year doing what I do, I guess.
Wow. So that's fascinating that, you were able to, what a dream to be able to come home and then also obviously be on the number one station in the market, which by the way, there's this dispute that's been, we don't have to get into this minutia, but there was the ratings last year. 12 said they won. 10 said they've got the most viewers. Who knows what it is? I would still say 10 is probably the number one most watched station in the market. It feels that way, I guess, but
It's what's known as a legacy station.
Yep.
So it's just been so dominant for so long that it's kind of almost presumptive that that's what it is. The shows that were in dispute, if you will, I wasn't on, so I just hang out on my weekends. And
you're number one. That's all that matters. So what was it that drew you into broadcasting, drew you into news, and specifically weather forecasting? Because it's especially in New England, it's a fun place to cover weather. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of diversity in the seasons, and then within the seasons too. I mean, here we are in November. Just last week, literally a week ago, it was 72 degrees. I was walking around on the beach. Now I'm like, all right, probably need to get my coat out.
Right. We actually broke records for an extended period of time. It was awesome. It was different. But what actually got me into it was something that didn't happen here. When we were living in Maryland, I lived there from when I was 3 to when I was 8. When I was 5, a bolt of lightning struck our backyard.
Wow.
Struck the house, the plates came down. It was very intense, and I had to know why that happened. So since then, everything was about lightning. Every science fair or project was about lightning. And that became my thing. And what accompanied the lightning was a lot of hail. And I actually collected the hailstones in a Ziploc bag and kept them in the freezer. But when we moved from Maryland to Massachusetts, they actually melted, and it was, well, frankly, devastating.
Yeah.
But once weather gets its hooks in you, it's your calling. I think if you ask just about any local meteorologist, they will have a story of a weather event. Like I know for Tony Petrarca, it was the blizzard of '78. So everyone has a story where the weather got its hooks in you. Broadcasting, that's easy. My father used to design television stations and sell the equipment for them. From the technical side. So he wouldn't design sets or anything. He would design like the racks of equipment, camera placement, all of the equipment that you would need. He, in fact, was the guy who put together Channel 36 when it came together, Rhode Island PBS. But it used to be Channel 36. Yep. So my dad did the whole rack design for 36. So we've always had equipment in our house. There's me on tape when I'm 5 going, today's going to be hot, but a little chilly. It's always been around the house. It's been kind of a natural thing, I guess.
Yeah. You are a natural broadcaster, though. You can feel that. Even there was I think it was, of course, it was after the earthquake. And, there was a Facebook Live video. I can't remember who it was. Maybe Tomorrow walked into the room and it was sort of like, okay, surprise, you're on Facebook Live. Give us an update on the earthquake that just happened. This was last Sunday. And, you just, you snapped right into it. And it was like this really entertaining. The map wouldn't open or something. And you were kind of working your way through the computer. But it was entertaining. It was engaging. You know what I mean? And those are the moments where, you can really sense if someone is a performer at heart. Because as Gene Valicente said on this show, I
love Gene.
Oh, Gino, look out.
I love that.
It's 50% the journalism, the humanities, and 50% the fine art of performing when you're on television. And you've got to have both of those skills. And I think that's really true. A lot of people try to say, well, no, we're all business. We're not entertainers. But that's not true. You need to engage people and keep them with you. So you have both of those elements. That's a rare thing.
Wow. Thanks. I just think that there's so much complicated information that you have to be able to convey so people can understand so that they can remain safe. Mm-hmm. So that's the skill that I've tried to work on the most, is trying to be as concise as possible and understandable. The thing about the earthquake, when I worked at WMUR, I was actually the science editor. So I would do weekly science stories. And one of them was on earthquakes. So I pulled from that the information about the ground and the terrain and how New England has very rocky terrain and the difference in earthquakes. But yeah, it's funny because being a TV meteorologist, you do more than the weather. You essentially become what's called, actually in the industry, the station scientist. So you have to be always learning. And that's one of the things I love about what I do, is that I always get to learn. I get to do something different and new every day, literally every day. Even if the difference is by a degree, I learn. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's about just being, and then that role that you serve the public, you know what I mean? You're one of the first lines of defense that people go to on those matters, you know, whether it's, hey, I want to plan a trip, or, hey, there was just an earthquake in my neighborhood potentially.
Right. And earthquakes, that was such new territory, because I didn't have the background enough in it to know that people could, it could do damage underground to not only plumbing, but gas lines and stuff. And wow, that really amped up the severity, the critical need for information for that. So yeah, it goes back to always learning, I guess.
Discover over 200 episodes of Rhode Island's podcast of record, the Bartholomew Town Podcast, on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your pods. Or head over to our website, ripodcast.com. Give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Bill Bartholomew. How have you adapted as television has moved from a live 6 o'clock newscast, you know, I don't know, somehow I'm picturing like a black and white, like a family gathered around with like popcorn, you know what I mean? Like petting the dog, you know, it's not that, but
quiet, the TV's on.
Exactly. The newsman's on. Doug White's coming up here. Relax.
I love Doug.
Yeah. R.I.P. One of the legends.
Agreed.
Maybe a Mount Rushmore figure of the future when they build that Mount Rushmore of Rhode Island broadcasters. But how have you adapted personally to an age where people are now consuming television news on the internet in on-demand format? There's obviously all these different newscasts that take place throughout the day, but at the end of the day, a tremendous amount of people are, you know, they're going to turn10.com or they're looking for you on social media. Mm-hmm. What has that done to your I guess your output creatively and what you do with conveying the science that you present to the public?
I try not to reinvent the wheel. If the National Weather Service says something, it's concise and people can understand it, I just straight up will forward it right on to everybody, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. It's not my words. I'm not going to, so I do that as far as social media goes. If maybe there's something that needs to be clarified or maybe more attention needs to be drawn to it, then I'll insert my own words at the top. But I don't know. It was not hard, but different for me because this wasn't something that I came to the market with. When I came in 1995, it was just the TV, and we were just starting to get into putting forecasts on the website. We would do an occasional newspaper or, of course, the radio stations, and that was it. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve, and as my kids have grown up, I've kind of gotten a primer by them, so they helped me a lot. But it's been an adjustment. I think I'm getting the hang of it. I evidently have an Instagram account I forgot the password for, so I had to make another one. But I just try and get. You know what? In the end, it doesn't matter me. It's all about the information, and it's all about what people need to know to stay safe. So, however they get it, I am totally cool with.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. You know what? I as a consumer, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I love radio, like the AM. When I listen to WPRO, for example, it's going to be on AM. I like the crackles, you know what I mean? Totally. And I prefer that over listening to the stream online. If I'm watching Channel 10, even though I personally haven't had a television in 15 years, there's something about it. If like as a musician, for example, if I was playing a gig and, you know, somehow the 11 o'clock news came on after a game or something like that, you know, I'm the one who's gonna be like, yo, turn it up. I want to see what Mark Searles has to say. Right. I love that coming across the television. But at the same time, now the merging of platforms has become something that I think is really important, more tolerable, where for me anyway, that there's not that much of a difference between Facebook, TV, radio, podcast. It's all just content and it's just different delivery methods. It's like, you know, it's got to be, in other words, everything has to be the same quality. It's not like, well, that's just social media. It's not going out on the broadcast, or, well, that's just, that's just for the Providence Journal, the Thursday Pro Joe. That's not our 6:00 newscast on Thursday night. It's all the same. It's all the content, and everyone, I don't know, it just raises the bar for everything. It's in a way, it's nerve-wracking as a producer, but as a consumer, it's kind of nice to know that no matter where you pick something up, it's credible and it's top notch. So hopefully,
Yeah. And what's cool is that, if there's a forecast that comes out, if one of your local meteorologists issues a forecast and you're like, I don't know, you can go and check literally everyone else too. So it's kind of neat because, you get a consensus of data from these people who have experience, and it makes you a better, more educated consumer in the end. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As much of an adjustment as it's been, you can't ignore the importance of it.
Right.
Of being able to reach as many people as possible and as quickly as possible, especially when it comes to weather.
Bingo. That's it. It's reaching across, being less rigid. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like in the past, newspaper folks would be like, well, we reach the newspaper audience. If someone can't be bothered to read what we have to say, then they're going to miss out on it or whatever. Now it's everybody wants that same content no matter which format they read that in. It somewhat comes down to empathy as well. Some people prefer to consume in different ways.
Yes, absolutely true.
What is the biggest weather event you've covered?
I've covered a lot of weather events. The one that really sticks in my mind is the blizzard of 2005, because it was the first big thing I did when I came to Channel 10. And it was the first time I had worked with John Giorgi and Gary Lay, called in. It was
Hello.
Everyone was there at the same. Yeah, he was on vacation in Florida, so he called in. But I got to work with John Giorgi, and to be honest, in his presence, it literally is like, oh my God, it's John Giorgi.
Giorgi factor 1,000 at just
right?
him.
It's honestly overwhelming, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
He's just such a force, and he knows so much, and I got to work with him, and I got to be that's when I became like part of the team, and I got it. I understood this is what a weather team is. And it was so cool. And I remember after it was done, Frank Coletta turned to me and said, folks are going to know who you are now. And I was like, okay. It was a significant event, and it was fun to be part of history. And there's so many little stories that go along with that event. Like, I was at the station for 21 straight hours. I didn't leave. So everyone sort of found their own perch and kind of sacked out for a little bit because we didn't have cots or beds or anything. And I found the couch in the main entry area. So you would come in the door and there'd be a couch there, and that's where I sort of camped out. And over the course of the hour that I tried to sleep, the wind would blow the doors open, and there soon was like a mountain of snow that was forming inside the entryway because it was such the storm had so many aspects, and wind being one of them. But yeah, it's hard to sleep when you just get all excited about things like that. And but yeah, Blizzard 2005, definitely number one for me.
Wow, that's a cool story. That really is. And it is those moments that introduce you to, you have the audience, and when you're on a platform like a Channel 10, obviously, it's probably hard for you to go, well, now you can wear a mask, but it's probably hard for you to go into a Stop and Shop or Dave's, let's say, or whatever, and not have somebody recognize you or go, is that Kelly Bates? Do I say anything? What do I do here? But at the same time, once you get to something like you just described right there, and you become part of that even greater public consciousness, and people start talking about what they saw and what they consume from you and referencing you in it, and then it's just, no pun intended, a snowball effect. And next thing you know, you're a local celebrity.
I don't know about that, but it was a moment where I knew I was helping as many people as possible, and getting that message across in a way that was keeping people safe. And seriously, that's what it's all about. I do need to let you know that if a storm is coming, my husband does the grocery shopping.
Okay.
The last time I went shopping, the day before a storm, it took me 3 hours to get out of Stop and Shop.
Yeah.
So I'll send Mike, and he'll go, just because it takes a long time to get home. But I don't mind. In fact, I am totally cool. I love that people, have stories and they feel they can come up to me, because they can. I like the information that people give me about where they were during this event. It sort of rounds out the picture, if you will.
What do you think and this kind of veers into a different area, so to speak, but we've seen a lot of talk about climate change. And when we think about the big stories of 2020, obviously COVID, obviously social justice and the elections, yet climate change or just weather events that are abnormal or the shift in the environment. What role does meteorology and broadcasting to a wide audience? Obviously you're not going to put up on the screen, here's the Green New Deal and everybody, get on board with this on as you're delivering the 10-day forecast.
Right.
But how do you sort of share information about the importance of, just generally speaking, conserving and taking care of the environment as a meteorologist, as that in-house scientist? What's that like?
Well, because the issues become so politicalized, it has become like walking a razor's edge. It makes it extraordinarily tricky. What I can tell you factually from data, from analyzing data and having friends who, you go to school with who their job is to analyze climate data. This is true. It is happening and it needs to be responded to immediately. I feel comfortable saying that. I know maybe some folks will be like, no, but it is true. It does need to be responded to immediately. And our increase in weather events and the extremity of weather events is just a result of that. Like right now, we're watching the rapid development and intensification of Hurricane Iota. And I know it's far away from here, but this is going to become a catastrophic and devastating storm. And it's now, as of today, it had maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour and was expected to continue to grow. And this is an area that's still dealing with Hurricane Ada. And then you take the names of the storms themselves. We haven't been this far into the Greek alphabet before, and we're still not even done with this hurricane season. It's the 16th. Hurricane season ends the last day of November. And just to call back to 2005, that hurricane season, we actually went into December. So the fact that every day I go in and I look at climate data, the record high more and more is set at a more recent date. Meanwhile, the record lows are maintaining in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. It's right in front of us every single day. And I can't reiterate enough how much we really do need to get on the ball about climate. Because climate change is absolutely, in my opinion, the number one issue we should be addressing right now.
I think that certainly members of the Generation Z and certainly others as well, but they would agree with you. And it's been interesting to see over the last year or so, this Sunrise Movement group that has, I was at literally a year ago, I think yesterday or the day before, there was a Boston Globe event. The governor was there and these kids showed up and just, kind of in disguise and then popped up singing and chanting, demanding the governor sign a Green New Deal. And you go, wow, all right. Yeah, that's a good thing. That is good civil disobedience right there. Because we need the environment to exist for any other ideas to be able to exist in the future.
Exactly. And that's something that money can't buy.
Yeah.
We really need to I think there needs to be a general reshuffling of priorities. Because the environment really does need to be number one. Otherwise, we literally all lose. Doesn't matter how much money you've got,
Absolutely. Last couple of minutes here. What are your goals as a broadcaster going forward from here? You know what I mean? Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you want to make sure happens?
Oh, personal goals. I was going to say my perspective from this point on is to mentor the young people coming into this business as much as I possibly can, to be there as a resource and as a support network, because the young people are the future of this business. And it is honestly a privilege to work with the future. I mean, really, think about it. It's kind of cool. Personally, every time we have a story, I want to go outside and they don't let me outside. But I want to go outside. So I've always enjoyed being out there in the elements. I'm a snow person. So every time it snows, I'm one of the people who bounces off the walls and doesn't sleep. I want to just be out there in the elements. I am where I want to be. I'm where I've always wanted to be. Having done most of my growing up in this area, I am really just happy to continue on. I'm fortunate enough that they keep me employed. So as long as I am able, I'm just happy to do my job and learn every day and hopefully be able to reach some more people and just keep everybody as safe as possible.
And lastly, how has COVID changed what you do?
COVID hasn't changed what I do because of my shift on the weekend mornings. There's literally 4 other people in the building when I go in. So I've always gone in. I've never done from home because I haven't had to. I made my own hand sanitizer for a long time. According to Barbara, it's good stuff. But it really didn't change much for me. Because I never had to adapt to anything. I've just continued on the same path. I do care for my elderly father, so it has changed how I deal with him on a personal note. We set up in his garage at 12 feet apart in our chairs, and we have a beer every now and then, and that's nice. But yeah, we grocery shop for him too. But yeah, COVID for me personally hasn't changed. My kids and my husband certainly working out of the house, everyone all together all the time. Sometimes you just need to go for a walk and stuff. But it's my younger son's senior year at high school as well. So I feel bad because they're not going to have the winter ball. They're not going to have the chorus concert because he sings. And for Christmas, it's always been a treat for us. So
yeah,
but
that's really sad.
Yeah, it is. It is as a parent because you want him to have everything, his last year in high school. And it's just not going to be the case this year.
Yeah, but it will definitely be one of those situations where, you stand out as a senior in either college or high school. When we look back on this in 50 or 60 years, you'll be able to go, well, I remember I was a senior and everything was canceled, and you'll stand out in the history books, so to speak.
Yeah, my son's doing his college applications, and they actually have a COVID section of the Common app to fill out. You have to comment on how it's impacted you in your personal life, and a lot of the colleges are being understanding because a lot of kids take 2 sets of SATs, but this year, because of COVID, they've only been allowed to take 1 set of SATs. So a lot of colleges have relaxed SAT requirements. Yep,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly Bates, ladies and gentlemen, a staple of this market now for 2 decades. Jeez,
yeah.
That is incredible. What a goal. Yeah, it must go by in a whirl,
It does. It does. And it's been an awesome privilege to be here. It's truly a privilege to do with this here in Southern New England.
Yeah, it's a great audience. It really is. Sometimes someone asked me, hey, if you had an opportunity to go back to New York or somewhere else, especially on the podcast side, and would you take it? And it's like, boy, it's hard to imagine leaving this audience and this community, and the size is the advantage, and it's just a special place,
And as tough as we are as Southern New Englanders, we grab on to each other when we need to. And it's just I love the network of support that you get here in Southern New England. And truly, we are lucky, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,100 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.